being heard in camera. Our professor has been a deputy speaker in this house. Our professor has been leader of the majority in this house. He knows these privileges. Or was he deliberately trying to frustrate the committee of the Parliament of the Republic of Kenya? Your Excellency, President William Samoei Ruto, we are going to help you to get rid of non-functional ministers who are for anything else as good as dead wood. Mr. Speaker, why would a minister make it difficult for a committee of Parliament to deliver? Oh, when I think about the grief in Kakamega, in the villages of Mumias, in the villages of Ekolmani, in the villages of Shinyalu, in the villages of our community, when we learned that our teachers, some of our teachers had died in Shakahola, I have no kind words for anybody who shielded the exposure of these criminals. Mr. Speaker, in this elaborate report, which I'm glad that now all members are acquainted with, the committee is asking the National Police Service Commission to severely sanction security officers whose acts of commission and omission aided or abetted the Shakahola tragedy 30 days from now. Mr. Speaker, so that it remains evidently clear to the Republic of Kenya that civil servants, senior security officers, they drink and dine on the blood of the poor. The committee has been very specific. It has said on page 135, Mr. Speaker, that Mr. Joseph Kemboi, the senior superintendent of police in charge of the sub-county police commander in Malindi, should be disciplined. Charles Kamau Wangu, the assistant superintendent of police, the criminal investigation officer in Malindi, should be disciplined, as should Simon Odera, superintendent of police, sub-county police commander, as should Mr. Guracha, the superintendent of police, critical infrastructure protection unit in Malindi, as should Augusto Akuna, officer commanding police station in Malindi, as should Hassan Hamara, officer commanding police station Langobaya, and Calvin Maloa Otieno, the DCI of Malindi, Daniel Mudusi Muleli, the county criminal investigation officer, Jacinda Wesonga, county police commander, Paul Maweu, critical infrastructure protection unit officer, and Joseph Yator, police officer attached to Directorate of Criminal Investigations. They should be disciplined. Mr. Speaker, why I'm reading out these names in this august house is so that members of the public in Shakahola, in Malindi, in Kilifi, in Coast, everywhere in Kenya, should not obey any instruction from any of these officers, should the usual nonsense of government of transferring police officers who are supposed to be sacked be the practice in this case. I can assure any of them, if they appear in Kakamega on transfer, I will request politely the bullfighters of Khaega to resist.
Honorable Bonnie, are you calling for civil disobedience in Kakamega? Kindly withdraw that statement and proceed with your very good contribution.
Mr. Speaker, I am so directed, and I do. But let it be understood that in our community, we say, he who is mourning knows no shame. This is, in this debate, I'm mourning. I have been to those homes. In fact, in some of the homes, Mr. Speaker, we have already buried wet banana stems. In our culture, you bury a wet banana stem when you have lost out all the possibility of ever bringing your beloved one to be buried home. Because having stayed in Kilifi, our families have been there for months on end. And it is either DNA or what cannot be found, and therefore they are unable to know who amongst all these bodies is indeed their own beloved one. So they have buried bananas. I therefore withdraw that remark and appeal to the security organs to ensure that disciplinary action is taken against these criminals who are in uniform. The committee recommends also at 448 that Parliament enacts the proposed Religious Organization Bill 2023 to provide legislative framework for the regulation of religious organizations and establishment of Office of the Registrar of Religious Organization, registration framework, qualification of religious leaders, offenses and penalties for non-compliance. Mr. Speaker, if I had the power, and I don't have, I would convert Senator Mungatana's committee into a special committee to work on this bill. This bill must be available. The tragedy that is Shakahola has now given us the opportunity, the reason, the courage, the excuse for us to face our religious leaders and tell them, you are going to be regulated. Religious organizations must be regulated. Why do we have the Bible? Why do we have the 10 Commandments? Why do we have the teachings of the disciples of Jesus Christ? Why do we have the teachings of Prophet Muhammad in the Quran? Those teachings are meant to set standard so as to regulate. So regulation is already provided for in the Bible, it is provided for in the Holy Quran, is provided for even in the Constitution. We must regulate churches. There are far too many. Let me tell you, from Shikalagala Junction to Marinya, on the way, on the road from Shikalagala to Butere.
Senator Boni Khalwale, what is your point of order? Yes. Senator Okech.
Mr. Speaker, you know, I wouldn't at all want to, and I'm rising understanding on number 105 on statement of fact. I wouldn't at all want to, you know, interrupt the cadence with which the majority whip is already presenting, and these are very passionate